What is going on? Welcome back to the Sooner Surge. Hey, before we get started with this video, click that subscribe button, join a part of Sooner Surge. Also, check out the FanStop, www.thefanstop.com. Look at this nice little jacket I got on here. It's from the FanStop. You can use code SURGE. You'll get 10% off your first 3 months if you sign up for the Shirt of the Month Club. Check them out. Jackson, basketball. Once again, under Porter Moser, the non-conference, they win a tournament. This is like a tradition under Porter Moser. I think it's the third time that they've won a tournament before conference season starts. And this one was the biggest one, though. This was the battle for Atlantis. Good competition, and they win it. I think a lot of Sooner fans, and me included, Jackson, we have this wait and see approach with this team because let's face facts. Under Porter Moser, they've been really good in the non-conference season. It's when they've gotten to the conference season of the Big 12 where they've kind of struggled. And so this was – but let's just talk about this tournament. It was a massive, massive weekend for Oklahoma. They had some big wins. They had many contributors. It wasn't just one guy. So I think, yeah, it's looking really positive for Oklahoma. Porter Moser may have his best team yet, Jackson.
Yeah, Jay, I think what's a little bit different about this team, and I kind of agree with you too, whenever it's just a wait and see approach to conference play, because it's been the same story the last 2 years. They start off extremely hot, and the non-con, they play some good teams. They beat those teams, and it gets into conference play, and Oklahoma has a tough time. But if there's one thing that's apparent about this team is that I think there's more depth than what they've had, because you don't even have Jadon Jones playing yet, or Jeff Nwankwo, depending on if he even comes back this year. And those are two guys that were expected to be potential starters going into the year. So you just look at guys like Jeremiah Fears, who is Oklahoma's NBA guy. You've seen the recent draft stuff. He's projected to be a first-round pick at this point with just how awesome he's been playing. Then you have Jalen Moore, who did Jalen Moore things all tournament, helped Oklahoma so much. When Oklahoma was struggling, I believe it was in the final game against Louisville, Jalen Moore at points was the only offense they had, and he was scoring for them. And then you had guys like Kobe Elvis step up in certain games. Duke Miles, Glenn Taylor. In my opinion, the unsung hero is Luke Northweather.
Huge weekend.
Because he was really good on the glass, hit open threes when it was there, played confident ball. Did he potentially solidify himself as that backup five going for the rest of the season? I think that's something to watch. But Oklahoma, Jason, you said they got it done, and it's just kind of that wait-and-see approach with Moser and staff going into the season. In which Oklahoma, this is a must-make tournament year for Moser. Else I don't think he'll be here next year.
Yeah, and you mentioned Northweather. The one thing that's been, I think, holding Northweather back, he's been able to knock down the three when he's played a little bit, but the rebounding, when Godwin goes out, you have to have somebody in there that can be physical and rebound, and he was that over the last few games. He was really good at it, made some big-time plays, and then he knocked the three ball down. You get a little bit different when Godwin goes out and he comes in. It's a lot different game with the pick and pop because Godwin can't do that. And then you didn't see a whole lot of Wagyu maybe that last game. So it'll be interesting. The thing is, he's got options. That's what I love. And we haven't even mentioned Goodine. Goodine's back now. He had a couple big threes in the Louisville game. So you have him. You have Jadon Jones, who will be coming back soon, I think. Where's he going to fit in? Gives you another rotational piece. They have good guard play. You mentioned it, Jeremiah Fears. The guy, I think the thing that people don't talk about him as much is he reclassified. He should be a senior in high school. I mean, that's how good this guy. He should be a senior in high school, and he's playing big-time games against big-time players. And he had a great tournament. They have different guys that can beat you. I think that's the good thing is Jalen Moore. If you look at it, the first game of the tournament, he didn't do a whole lot at all. And then the last two games he carried. He was great. But you got two kind of potential. I mean, Jeremiah Fears will be an NBA player. Jalen Moore's right there too, I think, to make the NBA, depending on how he does the rest of the year. But they got a lot. They got talent. And I think Porter Moser – I think a lot of people say Porter Moser can coach. I think a lot of people know that. He can coach ball. He can draw up great things. If you look at all his teams at OU, they've had Their shooting percent, like if they get good looks, they're not just throwing up bad shots. One thing they're better at this year is they're not turning the ball over as much. And that's a big deal. But Porter Moser's got to figure out how to get this team to take it to the next level in conference play. If you remember back to last year, they got as high as ranked 8 or 9 in the country. And then the bottom fell out of this team. So what you got to keep away from it is that happening. And yeah, you can argue the Big 12 might be tougher than the SEC, but the SEC is a really good conference. Go look at Auburn. Go look at Alabama. They're playing really good ball. I think both those teams beat Houston over the last 2 weeks. And you can go down the list of other teams in that conference that are really good. So Tennessee, I mean, you could go, there's a lot of teams. So it's going to be a tough conference. And they just got to continue to build. I think the key with this team, I think, is you look at the bigs. I think Godwin, there's a lot of games where Godwin, even in this tournament, where he got in a foul trouble, he just kind of didn't do a whole lot because he doesn't have a massive offensive game. He just doesn't. Yeah. He's a pick and roll guy to the basket. He's great at rebounding. That's what you get from him the most. But I will say the other day, he didn't do a whole lot of anything, but he came and made one of the biggest plays of the game with the inbound play. So you got to give him that. But I think that might be the key to this team is when they get against athletic bigs, because Northweather's not the most athletic guy either. Mm-hmm. So you have Northweather and Godwin. So that might be when you get Wagyu, maybe, and I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name right, but correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe that gives you another option in games like that. So they have options. They just got to continue to build on it. And Jeremiah Fears looks like the real deal. You put him with Jalen Moore together. And then, like you said, Kobe Elvis, Duke Miles. We haven't talked a whole lot about Jackson. Duke Miles hit some big shots. They got some scorers, and they just seem to the chemistry right now seems to be fairly good. And that's you got to give it up to Porter Moser when you have this many new players and you're this early in the season and you're playing this together. I think that's kudos to the coaching job he's done so far.
Yeah, Jay, I'm not gonna lie. I wasn't as high on this year's team going into the season as how they've started the year.
Well, nobody was. They were picked 15 out of 16.
Yeah, they've exceeded all expectations to start. Something that I think is different about this team as well, that I don't think has been talked about by any of us here, I haven't heard it much for anyone outside of Oklahoma basketball in general, is how many different ways they've shown that they're able to win games. I think that now you're seeing in which Oklahoma, they can, if they're hitting their threes, they're a difficult team to defend, because they have the ability to hit threes at a high rate if they're on that night. They have the ability to be relentless downhill with Jeremiah Fears and Jalen Moore leading the way there. They can win on the defensive side of the ball with the depth at guard and wing that they have, right? So that's 3 different ways that they can win games. And also, I think that once they get into conference play, yes, it's not the Big 12. I think it's probably a little bit more of an offensive league compared to what the Big 12 was, because the Big 12 just defensively, there was no nights off in the Big 12. There just wasn't. Every single team, even the worst team in the conference, was a darn good defensive team. So it's just that Oklahoma, there's going to be nights where I think they might score 85 to 90 points against an opponent. It's a really high-scoring game. There might be other games where it's like in the 50s or 60s, like we saw in the final game in the Battle for Atlantis against Louisville. It's just Oklahoma, they're going to be able to win games in so many different ways, Jason. And I think that's a testament of what Moser and what he's been able to do with this team. I think already I can say this is just the most diverse team they've had with different guys that can do different things. And I think that's a good thing, but they have to carry it into conference play. Moser needs to be able to adjust in the SEC when it's needed most, and be able to grind out wins in the SEC and get into the tournament.
Yeah, and another guy, you mentioned him earlier, that had a good tournament and clutch plays down the stretch, Glenn Taylor. And he's, it gives you a lot of different options. And they got a big game coming up Tuesday night at the LNC. Georgia Tech coming into town. You know who's on that team? Everybody, Sooner fans. Javian McCollum, the transfer from Oklahoma, at Georgia Tech. You also have Jalen Moore going against his previous team. That's a good matchup. Get out there, support this team. Undefeated right now. Just been a great season so far. A lot to come, though. And I really hope they can keep this going and really have a good season, because I think Porter Moser needs it so bad. I mean, he's been on the bubble. They've been the first team out the last few years. They got to get over that hump. And Porter Moser has proven as a coach in the history of his coaching, he can coach in tournament play. Look at what he's done at OU in these tournaments, and look what he does in the NCAA tournaments. He can coach that when it's 3 games, and he's really good at that. And they just got to get over this hump, Jackson. And that starts with conference play. But before conference play, there's some big games. You got Georgia Tech, you have OSU, you got Bedlam coming up in December. You have Michigan, and they got some big tests in the non-conference. So hopefully they can keep it up. Get out there, support them, as Oklahoma is undefeated. Thanks for watching this video. Appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. We'll talk to you next time.